a reading update on Mistborn and Rubicon. Okay, I have my latte here. Mistborn, 83 pages in, 600-page book, 640-page book. So what are my first impressions of Mistborn? The first Brandon Sanderson book that I have read or started reading. And it's interesting. The two main characters that you see, they're intriguing, they're mysterious, it gives hints at the backstory. And two of the things that I have been impressed with the way that Brandon Sanderson is writing this, especially considering this is the first book that he ever conceived of, the second book that was published by him, is that it has an extremely good flow. And what I mean by that is that you start reading and you can go from chapter to chapter and you can maintain a level of like motivation and intrinsic desire to continue to read. Whereas last week I had just finished the 8th book in the Wheel of Time, and these books are great. This is an interesting series. It's extremely long, but you hit parts in the book where it slows down. And so far, I'm only 83 pages into Mistborn, but so far it hasn't slowed down yet. It has good transitions from one scene to the next scene, whereas the Wheel of Time has some portions where the transitions are a little bit broken. It slows down heavily and it gets a little bit like, hey, this is what's happening in this section of the world right now, and it's important for you to know this for a later time. I think that that's where some people have said the Wheel of Time feels like nerd homework, whereas this is an enjoyable ride. So far, I haven't had a lot of nerd homework in Mistborn. There is, obviously some exposition about the magic system and how it works and blah, blah, blah. But it's relatively smoothly folded into the narrative story. The second thing that I think that Mistborn is doing really well is it is broaching advanced adult topics in a way that isn't gross. And another series that I absolutely love is A Song of Ice and Fire. And the issue with A Song of Ice and Fire that people who watched A Game of Thrones, the show on HBO, will know about is that parts of it are extremely grotesque. There are things that happen to women, and then there are things that happen on the battlefield that you don't necessarily want to read about, and it is covered in A Song of Ice and Fire, and it's more alluded to in Mistborn so far. So that, I appreciate that, because I don't necessarily want to read about all of the intricacies. And there could be a back and forth on this, because some people are like, hey, like George R.R. Martin is like, hey, like that happened. There are historical accounts of like all of this horrible stuff, and he wanted his fantasy to be realistic and grounded in the real world, and he based this off of the War of the Roses, which was a war for the throne of England. This feels a little bit less adult. It feels easier to get into, and I've really been enjoying the story so far. So only 83 pages in, we'll see how I feel about it once I finish the book. Okay, so Rubicon. This has been a very interesting history book so far. There aren't a lot of dates in it. It does have this section in the back where it has the timeline on the foundation of Rome, 753 BC, downfall of the monarchy in 509. But very quickly, he like skips through and he gets down to, he goes through the Punic Wars very quickly, since that's not the focus of this book. And in the second chapter, you're already talking about Gaius Gracchus and the Gracchi brothers. And now I'm in chapter 3. We're talking about Marius and Sulla. We're talking about all of the key things that lead to the fall of the Republic and the rise of the empire. And this is just like a fascinating book, fascinating part of history. And the way that Tom Holland writes it, it's closer to that of a novel than to a history book that you would have read in, high school or college. So the benefit of this, of an author that is able to take advantage of the power of the narrative and form that narrative on the historical account, is absolutely lovely. I've been reading this book closer to that of a novel rather than that of a history book. And I have listened to the full History of Rome podcast by Mike Duncan, which is a fantastic podcast. I listened to it on my commute. I loved it. So I do have background on this part of history from that podcast. But it's very enjoyable read going through this. 66 pages in out of, 370. So I still have a ways to go. But that is my progress on Mistborn and Rubicon. Both of them, so far, I would recommend them, and I will post up a video when I get to finishing and reviewing these books. So with that, cheers everyone. Enjoy your coffee and read some good books.